Thank goodness we're coming to you for the last time for the 2016 season here at Buffalo Bills pregame.
Happy 2017, by the way.
Thank goodness it's got to be better. It's got to be better.
We've been saying that for 17 years.
So we'll start out with our general thoughts and feelings on another mediocre season here in Bills land.
Hey, I called it before. I thought they'd be around 8-8, and you know what? Had they kept Rex for one more game, they probably would have been 8-8. So
and started their starting quarterback.
Yes.
Yeah, EJ just looked terrible out there.
Yeah, he was what we thought he was.
Was having to start EJ for the last game a low point in the season? Is that the low point in the season for you, or does it get lower than that?
I'd say Mike Gillislee and Brandon Tate not recovering a freaking kickoff in the end zone.
Did it get better? What was the high point of the season? Was there one?
4 wins in a row, maybe.
I was trying to think of a big play or a big moment.
Maybe Marquise Goodwin with the deep streak against the Jets in the game that Fitz was unstoppable.
Oh my gosh, that's another low point in the season. Fitz looking like Joe Montana against the Bills early on when we still had high hopes.
The only game he looked like a professional quarterback. Yeah.
Absolutely, but he squeezed $12 million out of it, so go Harvard. Are there any players that stood out to you, or who would you say was the best performing player on the Bills this season?
With respect to their salary, Gillislee. Even though he had that blunder in Week 17, he was, for being effectively a minimum wage player for this within the NFL salary structure, he was actually very solid as a number 2 running option. I would say that maybe if we had some rookies that were healthy and productive, I would say that would be a good encouraging sign, but you didn't see Ragland at all, and you saw Shaq Lawson and backing up Lorenzo Alexander, who was another pleasant surprise.
Another good bang for the buck in terms of salary, too.
Yes, I mean, he was a sack specialist, which was great, but he really didn't contribute much more than that when you look at the grand scheme of things.
Even though leading being the top 5 in sacks in the NFL, he was still pulling special teams duties too.
Yes,
right to Week 17.
And his second Pro Bowl, if I recall correctly, the one before was as a special teamer. So, props to him. Props to Gillislee. And
Gillislee also leads the franchise in average yards per carry. If any running back over 100 carries on the Buffalo Bills, no one's carried more yards per carry than Gillislee.
Oh, that's because we typically run our running backs into the ground, and a good number 2 should have a higher yard per carry than a number 1, because the number 1 is going to do the workload. But the fact that he's higher than Orenthal and Thurman, you gotta say that's impressive.
I'm a little biased because I rode him to fantasy football victory against you chumps this year, but also Shady had a hell of a season.
Yeah, Shady was my bell cow for my money league. Between him and Matt Forte, I'd have to say they were bell cows for me.
Respectfully, our producer came in 3rd.
Yes, and I didn't make the playoffs. So
worst player. Any standout losers on the team this year?
I would say from a standpoint of health, Aaron Williams. The guy does need to retire.
Or he might die.
Yes, it really comes down to that. When it comes down to his play, he was pretty darn good, but after he got hurt, there was no backup plan in place, and that's an area where you can fault Rex, you can fault Whaley, but when he wasn't in on the field, the run defense was god-awful, and you got to be able to trust a good safety to line up in the box and then go back into coverage if he needs to. And that wasn't the case with Duke Williams, Jonathan Meeks, James Ahedjabo, or however the heck you say his name, or Corey White, who was converting from corner during on the fly there. So when it comes down to it, I'd say Aaron Williams was a big loser in the season, unfortunately, and it's more to health issues there. You could say the same about Sammy as well there because of, his foot again.
In terms of big losers, just slightly change the question a bit. We fired 2 major coaches, being Greg Roman, highest paid offensive coordinator in the league, and Rex Ryan. Which one do you think carried more blame for the performance, up to the point where they were fired, obviously, because you can't blame Roman for week 15?
I would say they both share a certain amount of load, but Rex, as the head coach, it was on him to make sure the offense was doing what it was supposed to, especially when he had his brother and Dennis Thurman running the defense. He had to make sure that the offense and the defense and the special teams were all doing their part. And when you're the head coach, the buck stops with you there.
The Pegulas have been a lot more active than previous ownership here at the Bills. To a fault, some might say. What do you think of their level of involvement?
Well, we don't really know for sure how much they were involved other than just hiring the coach. Are they making that many personnel decisions besides sitting Tyrod, which, yeah, if he gets hurt, you have to pay him, as opposed to having the option to cut him and see if you got somebody else you could pick up on the trade wire, or even trading up for a top-end quarterback in the draft. It's just wise to have that option available to you, and it might be just smart to drop in the draft order a little bit by starting EJ. But the fact that Whaley was saying in an interview today that he didn't have anything to do with hiring Rex, he didn't have anything to do with firing Rex, that says that that's all in the Pegulas, and you got to be really worried about that in some ways.
Well, the business organization clearly is that the coach is reporting to
the owner,
not the GM, and it kind of leaves Doug Whaley out. It would seem with accusation, or when he would add players to the team, that it was someone that Rex would kind of give him his wish list, like, this is what I want, you make it happen. It seemed like Doug's job was to build up Rex's team the way Rex wanted it. Do you see Doug being kind of the buffer this time around in between the ownership and the coach? Or
that's what he said in an interview. Really, it depends on who they hire. If they hire somebody that's not as high profile as Rex was 2 years ago, I would imagine so. If you have somebody like a Jeff Fisher, God, I hope not, I would imagine that the continuity of Doug Whaley only being a patsy continuing.
I was really about to ask you who you thought, like, just hypothetically, worst case scenario might be for coach, and I kind of was thinking Anthony Lynn, but Jeff Fisher knocked it out of the park. That would be the worst. I would have to punt. I'd have to punt on the season.
I mean, has a coach gone that long with so few playoff appearances? By the way, screw you in 1999.
Wow, cheapers.
Yeah, I mean, that would be actually a big karmic bitch slap to us there. Hey, this is the guy who got away with a cheap win against us, and we haven't been back to the playoffs since. And we're hiring him now.
Millions of dollars. Here you go. So we've been told that Anthony Lynn is by no means a shoo-in for the position, but he will be.
Well, that depends on who you're listening to there, because one of the reports was saying he was a lock.
Yeah, but the ownership has since addressed that and specifically said he's not a lock. We have a graphic here of different possibilities. Of all these gentlemen, who do you think might be the best case scenario for the Bills?
Best case scenario, I'm very intrigued about Teryl Austin, like what he did in the past. I'm glad that Jim Bob Cooter's name hasn't come up, but one that I would, just for old time's sake, hope that he would be able to do well if he were to be hired would be Frank Reich. But when it comes down to it, I want the person who's going to bring playoffs to the Bills.
We should snipe the Patriots. Who's that defensive coordinator?
Matt Patricia. You have Josh McDaniels as well, who I would think would be a terrible retread at this point.
Do you think Belichick would set off their self-destruct buttons if they went over to the Bills?
Yes, I honestly do, though. I mean, keep in mind that Patricia did interview for the Browns and wisely either turned it down or did not get hired, fortunately.
Just some other off-the-wall kind of names that have been mentioned. Pettine. What if we brought Pettine back?
I'd be fine with that.
Schwartz.
I'd be fine with that to a degree. He wasn't that great of a head coach at Detroit at times, though. There were some boneheaded moves that he would do that you just go and just wonder what the heck was the deal there.
How sick do you think Kubiak really is?
I don't know. I mean, the dude's been...
Pegula's got oil money, man.
To be fair, with him being on retirement, I don't think he could pick up a contract anytime soon. With that in mind, oh man,
all right,
he's been pulled off the sidelines for the hospital twice in a few years now, so yeah.
All right, so moving forward, for Week 17, they didn't even dress Tyrod. EJ and Cardale were the quarterbacks that were available to play. Is that a sign that Tyrod's done? Like, we don't want you to have the possibility of getting hurt, so we're stuck with your contract. Are they just keeping their options open, or is Tyrod got a foot out the door?
I'm hoping it's that they're keeping their options open. Biggest problem is he has probably been the most consistent, and I say that very eerily hesitant there. Consistent quarterback we've had since probably Bledsoe. That it's one of those ones where he's probably the best option we have going into next season. I'd rather not burn that bridge, because if we're getting rid of him, you might as well just push the reset button.
But new coaches almost always want to bring in their own or make their own quarterback decision.
Yes. So
Tyrod was clearly Rex's decision to bring in.
Yes.
So I don't know. I don't think.
Who are they going to pick up? Bradford or Bridgewater from Minnesota?
Sanchez is available, I'm sure.
Oh God! Wait.
They gave him a first-round pick for him. I don't think
Tony Romo, who might make it through Game 2 of the preseason.
Fitzpatrick's probably gonna be free.
Yeah, I'll pass on that one.
I don't know. So, do you think then? Would you, if you had to bet right now, do you bet on Tyrod being the starter next year?
Hesitantly, yes.
Maybe Cardale has a hell of an offseason.
One could hope there as well, because they did draft, and he didn't look terrible in his limited action.
So it's hard to judge. So much will happen between now and then. The playoffs haven't even started yet, but are you optimistic looking forward to the 2017 season for the Bills?
Oh, hell no.
What would it take for you to be optimistic? Get Romo, sign Coughlin.
No.
Are there a set of moves that would like
trade for Bill Belichick? That'd be about the only thing, and
we'll trade you an oil field in Russia.
Oil field in Russia.
Come on, Kraft. We know your game to play. We've got some purple and white striped suits that he's always wearing ridiculous clothes. All right, well, I don't know. I'm not optimistic either.
It really comes down to, can the franchise be run coherently? And for 17 years, it's been a mixture of terrible, god-awful, and meh. The only upsides you could say is, well, LeSean McCoy looked great. Marcel Darius made it through some games without getting suspended again. You need a kicker who is competent, which we haven't had that, especially when you're carrying two.
I never thought I'd miss Lindell so much.
And then from there, you need just an offensive scheme that makes sense, and preferably a right tackle who can block, because Jordan Mills was god-awful.
All right, Steve Christie, it's on you, man. Well, this will wrap up another Buffalo Bills pregame. We look forward to being back, at least by the draft time in 2017. Thank you all so much.